everyone, I'm Jenny, and here today we're going to look at this setup. It's a black sweater and a computer mouse, and we're going to look at rendering. I've already done an outline here already, and if you want to know how to do an outline, you can look at last episode. So rendering, the first hot topic we're going to focus on is going to be values. Values is basically how light or dark shade is. So if you look at this setup over here, you can see that the mouse is whitest and the sweater is pretty dark. So now the white is white in this case, I'll just leave it blank and not do anything with it. Values, the thing to remember about them, it's all relative. You want to compare the different shade to make sure that it makes sense to the viewers. So after I put in the darkest darks, what we can do is we can compare the other shades in different regions of the drawing and compare it to how far it is from darkest dark and how far away it is from the lightest light. When we're doing rendering, we're drawing it in terms of blocks of colors and lines. So there is less of an emphasis on outlines, and so it's okay if we want to blur out the lines, just because in real life when we look at a picture, it is different blocks of colors instead of just made of lines. When we're drawing any object, is that these are 3D objects and they have dimensions, they have volume. When we're shading, we can control directions of the line to show the curvature of the object. So I can give an example over here. When you see like this region corresponding to a region on the setup, it's a fold that protrudes out in space. So in order to convey that it protrudes out in space, we can use curved lines here to show the shape. And one thing to really keep in mind about shading is to layer. You can start with a thin layer and then you can darken it slowly to get to the accurate degree of darkness. One shading trick you can use is when you feel like one region has gone too dark or you want your shading to be a little more precise. What you can do is you can take an eraser and use the eraser almost as a pencil and lighten up. In order to achieve the purpose of art, well, part of the purpose here is to not only to depict reality, but to manipulate it. Instead of expressing what the object looks like, you can express what the object feels like. So you don't have to get every single detail, you can just get the overall fuzzy feeling. So one way to do this is in utilizing mark making, which is the texture of the drawing and what kind of marks you leave on the page. So for the sweater, as I'm rendering it, I'm using generally rougher marks just to get the fuzzy feeling. But let's say I will start rendering the mouse now, the sweat mouse. It's very smooth and sleek. So in order to achieve that, I can switch to a lighter pencil and I can try to use finer lines instead of bigger lines. Just as it is with outlining, in rendering we can do sort of editing too. Looking at this picture, I sort of realized that there isn't enough contrast between the color of the mouse and the color of the sweater. So what I'll do is I'll use an eraser to generally lighten up. And another thing, if you're using graphite pencil, is that know that there's different shades. So right now I'm using HB, which is pretty light. 2H is lighter than this, but there's many more shades that are a lot darker. And one shade that's darker is 2B. So if we use a 2B pencil, we can generally darken the entire shading of the sweater just to give it a little more contrast. Today we learned about rendering. More specifically, we learned to render values, how to determine the darkest value and the lightest value. We learned to render texture, and we learned to render the 3D surface of an object. I hope you learned the gist of rendering, and here's what it looks like when it's done. Thanks for watching, and next time we'll learn about coloring.